The infamous Chronicled Wish has made a return, and frankly, this is actually a pretty good lineup of characters, but there are two major problems that I really want to address that are holding this banner back. However, if they continue doing these regional banners for each nation, I feel like the quality of the banners will continue to go up. Not only do I feel like these characters are a lot stronger than the Mondstadt characters, but they also hold a lot more, at least value to me, as there are a lot of fan favorites that we haven't really seen in a while that were once strong or still have a place in the meta. Overall, this is a pretty good lineup of characters, but once again, I want to get into the problem that I have with this banner. I personally think, and I feel like this is very reasonable on my part, that there should not be any standard banner characters on the Chronicled Wish. Keqing and Chi-Chi should not be on here. I feel like that is a very reasonable take, especially since the game has been out for what, 4 years? While I know that there's new players coming in, there's still, these characters, Keqing and Chi-Chi specifically, are technically always available. You can get them on the limited banner if you lose the 50-50 to them, and they're always on the standard banner. Yes, I know that the pool income for the standard banner wishes is very limited, but once again, we can always lose our 50-50 to these characters anytime we, get a 5-star on that banner. So I really feel like these standard banner characters should not be on here. Because personally, I'm a little gambling addict. If I were to pull on this banner, like let's say I wanted a Shenhe, I would not mind losing my 50-50 to like a Baizhu, a Ganyu, a Xiao, or a Tartaglia. I really would. And I feel like that's kind of where like this value comes from this banner. Like, yes, you could not get the character that you wanted, but in turn, you still got a decent unit. None of these units, at least, besides Keqing and Chi-Chi, are inherently bad. Some of these characters at one point in time were at the very top of the meta, but most of them still haven't really fallen off too hard. And I feel like with any of these units, you can still build a proper team with them and clear the hardest content in the game. It's just such a loss that we have Keqing and Chi-Chi on here. Keqing isn't even like a bad unit. It's just the fact that she's still on the standard banner and we can still always lose our 50-50 to her. We also just got a free standard banner picker in version 5. We also just got the 5-star standard banner selector in version 5. So if you really wanted any of these standard banner characters, you could have picked them up there or a constellation of one of them. So I feel like having them on the Chronicled Wish is still a loss. Let's actually go over the characters on the banner. Baizhu, in my opinion, he's still a pretty decent unit. Yes, Xiaolin just came out and she is very strong. And while they are both healers, Xiaolin's resistance shred is just so strong and so hard to pass up. However, Baizhu does have very good team-wide healing on his skill too. So he's not burst dependent for his healing. It's actually on his skill, which is very nice. And for his ult, while his shield it's really nothing too strong, to be honest. It's really just used for interruption resistance, which can be nice, but he's really just used for his team-wide healing that is on his skill. When it was his second rerun, I believe, he was actually one of Farina's best in slot healers, and he still is. He can still keep your team really healthy, all while maintaining the maximum Farina buff, which is really nice. Yes, his Dendro application off-field is pretty much non-existent, and while he can do some pretty decent Dendro on-field, you really don't want him to be taking up field time. As for his constellation, his steel one is actually pretty nice. It gives you an additional charge on your skill, so it's really just more healing for your team, which is always nice. As for his C2, you get a lot more Dendro off-field application and a good amount of healing as well. So he has pretty decent first two constellations if you do want to go for him. All right, let's talk about the next one, Shenhe. Do we even need to talk about her? This is the limited 6-star Genshin Impact character, the one and only, and you probably have never seen her before because frankly, this girl just doesn't show up in the game or on any freaking banner. She is the only 5-star limited cryo support that's dedicated to cryo. it is actually really, really insane. And I really can't understand why she doesn't get reran more often. It's like MiHoYo actually just hates Cryo. So if you like her design, because frankly, she is insanely hot, or if you like, using freeze or melt, pick her up because you're probably never going to see this girl ever again. It is truly sad. They just showed off Setlali too, which is kind of crazy that she's Cryo, but she don't even help Cryo. What is the point? They actually just don't like Cryo at this rate. So if you like Shenhe, just pull her at this rate. Just pull her, okay? As for her constellations, her C1 gives her an additional charge on her E, which is okay for your ER needs if you just want them to be lowered. It's really not that big of a deal considering how long the skill actually lasts. And C2 gives her a bit more personal damage, and the 15% increased cryo crit damage isn't really too crazy. This is genuinely one of the last times we're probably going to see this character. So if you really like to use freeze, if you want to do some stuff with melt or even physical, I would just pick her up. Honestly, just get her for the collection at this rate. Wait, they actually bent the rules for Shenhe. You need what, 3 reruns to be on this banner? The girl could barely get 1. That's actually kind of crazy. Alright, we have Keqing next. I'm not going to talk too much about her since frankly, she's on the standard banner. Keqing, I actually really like Keqing, especially in the early game when I made my free-to-play account. She kind of really carried me, especially with Dendro Traveler. So, I mean, if you want her, she's okay for aggro. She can definitely carry you. If you have, actually, no, we're giving out Barbara, Keqing, Dendro Traveler, and Barbara. You can hyperloom your way throughout the entire beginning and really the mid game too. And if you really build her, you can at least clear all the way up to floor 11 of the Abyss. So she's not a bad pickup. It's just she's on the standard banner, so you always have a chance to get her. So unless you're like a diehard Keqing fan, I wouldn't even recommend picking her for the Chronicled Wish. Alright, Ganyu. Now for the OG players, we know that Ganyu is our actual GO. This GO released in what version? 1.3? Either 1.2, 1.3. No, I think it was 1.3. And she absolutely decimated any boss in the entire game. It was so great. Now, of course, she's definitely shifted to a more sub DPS role with her amazing burst. And that's okay, Cryo hasn't really been in at all. Freeze, not too strong right now. Mel isn't too strong right now, so Ganyu's just kind of stuck in limbo. She's still a very popular character. I still really like her charged attack. I think they're very fun, they look really cool, and they still do damage too, which is very nice. She just can't really keep up with the newer DPSs and the HP inflation of the game. But if you like Ganyu, I still say get her, to be honest. You can slot her in with Ayaka and help out in a freeze team, and it's still pretty, it gets the job done, It's not, terrible. Look, she is still the OG waifu of Genshin Impact, still incredibly popular. I would really say if you have the Primos and you like her, pick her up. Now, as for the Coco Goats constellations, her C1 is actually pretty nice. I will say the Cryo Res is really nice, and it also helps her with her energy as well. She doesn't really have energy issues at all. It just helps get that burst back. Her C2 isn't anything special. It's one of those things where it just helps out if you get her to C6. But outside of that, it's just not that strong. Alright, Xiao, if you actually give him C6 Farazan, Cloud Retainer, and Farina, I know expensive, he can actually hold his own in the current abysses, and it's pretty nice. Oh, and his weapon, okay? That actually makes Xiao still relevant. I know, slap a Farina on anything and they'll do damage. But Xiao still holds his own in the current meta. He's still a pretty good DPS, and probably the strongest character on the entire Chronicled Wish, just in terms of raw power. He's still a great pickup. Animal has definitely seen better days, but with a C6 Farazan, I hope you've pulled on the Scaramouche banners, and I believe she was on one other banner outside of Scara, but the Cloud Retainer just reran alongside Nahida, so hopefully you have the necessary supports to make Xiao work. If you do, then he's still a good option. Now, as for Xiao's constellations, he's the type of character to where you either get him C1 or you just fully C6 him and nothing in between, because really, they are not that huge besides a C6 or a C1. I would really just stick to C1 and just that's enough for him, okay? Alright, Tartar is actually a bit tricky. He can still clear with Shenhe and Bennett, but you just have to play him correctly, and that's the biggest part with him. You know, he can be a bit clunky at times too. He's definitely not the strongest character in the game. He's more on the weaker side of things, but for child mains, they're a pretty dedicated group of people. I will give them that, and they still managed to clear the abyss. It's just if you want to put in that time and effort with them. As for his constellations, they actually somehow nerfed this, man. It's kind of embarrassing, and I really don't know what MiHoYo was burning in that kitchen, because it frankly did not work out. I will say I really like his dual stance. That's really fun to play around with. Unfortunately, you just have to get his rotations right. At least he's pretty free-to-play friendly. Most of us should have Bennett and Shenhe pretty built already. Maybe even Moika, when she comes out, can be a good option for him. As long as she provides enough pyro, then honestly, she could work out pretty well for him. We'll have to give that a look when she releases. Overall, that is all the characters on this banner. They were clearly too scared to put Yelan on the Chronicled Wish. I'm actually very surprised. I think she's gotten 2, or maybe she has gotten 3 reruns. Let me double check that. Yeah, Yelan has gotten 3 reruns already. They just knew that if they were to put Yelan on this banner, she would be the absolute must pull unit, and that would really make the value of the Chronicled Wish go up. That's actually kind of crazy that they didn't put her on there, but it kind of makes sense too, because frankly, if they put Yelan on this banner, that would be really good. Yelan is such a phenomenal unit. Even till this day, she has aged like fine. Well, she was never bad in the first place. She has just continued to be a very strong unit. The Chronicled Wish definitely still has issues, but I think this is just a much better lineup than the Mondstadt one, and I think these banners are only going to get better. Hopefully they're not just once a year. Hopefully we get it more often. With that being said, I am kind of excited to see how people react to this version of it. Look, Shenhe finally got her rerun, so I think that's a win overall. Anyways, I hope y'all win your 50/50s, and I'll see you in the next one.